Hey guys, here's your new vocabulary list. This is for the week of 9/6 through 9/9. You have a test on these words on Monday, and we are also including some of the vocab words from last week too, so don't forget those.
Okay, so make sure you write your vocabulary words down as well as their definitions on a piece of paper, and when you go to class tomorrow, we'll be doing an activity.
Fun. Your first word is apprehensive. And here on the right side, we have examples from books. Maru was apprehensive, not only at the prospect of leading the journey, but also at the thought of controlling Otek. Would he obey her?
Okay, so apprehensive means anxious or fearful, uneasy. So basically, you might feel apprehensive when you go somewhere new, you try something new, or when you're taking a test.
Good. You only need to write the definition down, not the example. Your next word is attentive. Without further delay, Taran lifted Caw from his fireside perch and carried him to the dooryard. This time the crow did not clack his beak or gabble impudently. Instead of his customary scoldings, coarse quackings, and mischievous foolery, Caw hunched on Taran's wrist and cocked a beady, attentive eye, listening closely while Taran carefully explained the task.
Okay, so this first definition means giving attention to something. So basically it's about being observant.
Your second example says, he looked as dry as dust and no more kindly than a silver ink pot, but he was as polite and attentive to those two little girls as if they'd been the Duchess of Savoy and her twin sister.
Okay, and this definition means paying careful attention to the comfort or concerns of others. Considerate. So basically, you're being caring.
Yes. Banish. I do not know whether Father Linares saw it again or not, but I do know that while it lived there in the sea, it lost the claws and forked tongue and the evil smell. It became the most beautiful creature I've ever seen. Yes, beautiful. And still, it was the same evil thing that Father Linares banished from our land many years ago. This is strange.
Okay, banish means to force to leave the country or place, exile. So basically, getting kicked out.
Bluff. A full minute went by before it dawned on me that I was still in one piece. When I realized this, I began noticing things. Every time the big monkey ran at me, he only came a little way. Then he would turn and shuffle back. He was bluffing.
Okay, bluff. To engage in a false display of strength or confidence, especially in order to deceive someone. So basically, you're trying to get someone to think what you want them to think. Or, for example, performers, they sometimes feel really nervous before they get on stage. However, we don't always know it because they're such good performers and they're bluffing.
Brandish. Allow me, shouted Lockhart. He brandished his wand at the snake and there was a loud bang. The snake, instead of vanishing, flew 10 feet into the air and fell back to the floor with a loud smack.
Brandish, to wave or exhibit something in a dramatic or threatening way. A lot of times in movies you'll see the bad guys waving a weapon around in excitement or anger. So that would be an example of to brandish something.
Commotion. The day whizzed by and so did his afternoon chores and dinner. Suddenly he was dressed in his best clothes and standing next to Benny backstage, listening to the commotion as the cafeteria filled with school kids and parents.
Okay, commotion, noisy activity or confusion. I could think an example of this would be when you're inside the classroom and you might hear some noise outside, like a fight or something wrong, and people come running out. That would be an example of commotion.
Concoction. In their pine bough snow enclosure, with a crackling fire before them, they ate from their sack of dried meat and drank the concoction of strengthening swamp tea leaves that Nokomis had plucked from bushes as they walked.
Concoction, something that has been prepared by putting several things together, a mixture of ingredients. An example of this from when I was a kid was a drink called Suicides, and we would go to a fast food restaurant and we would mix up different kinds of sodas, and each time it would be different. So that would be an example of concoction.
Counter. Claudia, who had eaten cereal and drunk pineapple juice, scolded him about the need to eat properly. Breakfast food for breakfast and lunch food for lunch. Jamie countered with complaints about Claudia's narrow-mindedness.
counter, to do or say something in opposition to something else. So, for example, in the courtroom, when a lawyer says objection, they disagree and have a different viewpoint.
Diminish. Will blew out his cheeks and set off to climb the staircase. It was made of blackened oak, immense and broad, with steps as worn as the flagstones, far too solid to creak underfoot. The light diminished as they climbed, because the only illumination was a small, deep-set window on each landing.
Okay, diminish. To make or become smaller or less, reduce or decrease. So we're going from a large amount of something to a small amount of something.
Simple enough. Dismal. The farms were not nearly so well cared for as they were further back. There were fewer houses and fewer fruit trees, and the farther they went, the more dismal and loathsome the country became.
Dismal. Causing gloom or depression, dreary, feeling gloomy, depressed, or miserable. So the best way I can think to describe this word would be blah.
And that's, I think that's our
That's
last word. Have a good night.
All right, bye.